Good afternoon, everybody. This is Superintendent Sherry Ibarra, and I want to thank you all for joining me on today's webinar. I want to mind my manners. My mom would be so proud, and take a moment to quickly give a huge thank you out to Excel and Ed for helping coordinate this webinar today. I said it yesterday on a webinar where I was a panelist, and I'll say it again, that I just cannot express enough how important that partnerships are right now during this trying time. And it's just another way to join together and share ideas. We can never have enough resources. So again, a huge heartfelt thank you to Excellence in Education for coordinating this effort. As you know, we've had to move to a statewide distance learning model due to COVID-19, and we've seen some really great creativity, innovation, and resourcefulness among our parents and our teachers and our school leaders. But despite all of this, we've also encountered some challenges and some obstacles that we've had to make this transition. So what we're doing here today is we have the opportunity to hear from several panelists across the nation who are experts in distance learning and are here to share their experiences, their lessons learned, their ideas, their tools, and their strategies for successfully implementing distance learning platforms. And before I get into introducing the panelists, I also just want to mention that in Idaho, we've highlighted the good work that's going on in our schools, and I've had several webinars that are resource sharing opportunities. And I encourage you to check out our State Department website, as well as the coronavirus.gov website for Idaho specific resources. But again, you can never have enough resources. And so these are experts from across the nation that include several superintendents that are walking in our shoes, that have some great ideas to share with us. And we'll have an answer question and answer opportunity at the end. If you have something that you would like to ask, a specific question around how maybe something was handled in their district, you'll have that opportunity. So I'm pleased to be joined today again by several individuals who are experts. Along with the superintendents, we have some great business partners as well who have forged, all of these folks have in common the fact that they've forged successful partnerships to help continue and make sure that students are learning. So with that, it's a real honor and pleasure to introduce Sal Khan. He's the founder and CEO of Khan Academy. You've heard me mention that resource on our webinars before in the state of Idaho. Many of you are already familiar with his story, but the Khan Academy began with Sal creating videos to tutor his cousin remotely. And that small beginning has since expanded beyond Sal and his cousins to a team of over 200 that work to assist those without a formal education. Educators, anyone who has access to the internet to learn anywhere, anytime, in 36 languages throughout the globe. And I've had the pleasure of being in several of Sal's events with him and hearing him speak. So it's just a real honor to have him with us today. We also have Dr. Bethany Quisenberry. She is a K-5 curriculum director at the school district of Lee County in Florida. She spent much of her career in schools improving educational outcomes for students. And before beginning with Lee County School District, she was the principal of Franklin Park Elementary School in Fort Myers. She also worked as a teacher and assistant principal at Sunshine Elementary School. And with her, she has Debbie Smith from Curriculum Associates. She's an education company committed to creating innovative solutions to improve classrooms for teachers and students through personalized learning. Their products aim to deliver the insight, instruction, and support that educators rely on to help students achieve their greatest possible gains. We're also pleased to have Dr. Stephen Polling with us. Stephen is the Assistant Superintendent in the Dysart Unified Public Schools in Arizona. Courtney Calfee is along with him today. She's the Senior Director of Partner Services Global at Florida Virtual School. And Courtney has spent over 13 years supporting the mission of Florida virtual schools in various capacities. Interestingly, she co-authored the Conspiracy Code, American History game-based course, and winner of the 2010 Cody Award for Best Social Studies Instruction Solution. So pleased to have her with us as well. And also Julie Young is with us today. She is the ASU Vice President of Education Outreach and Student Services, Managing Director of ASU Digital Prep and ASU Prep Digital High School. Julie's been a leading voice for online and virtual learning revolution for nearly 3 decades. She led the launch of ASU Prep Digital, a digital high school started by Arizona State University. She was the founding CEO and president of Florida Virtual School and the world's first statewide virtual school, and one of the nation's largest K-12 online education providers. She also worked as the chief executive officer of Global Personalized Academics and as the assistant principal at Florida's Orange County Public Schools and Pinewoods Elementary. So as you can see, we have quite the lineup today for you all. And with that introduction, I'm going to go back to Sal Khan and have him give us a little more detail about his organization and what his partnerships are doing to support distance learning. So Sal, pleased to have you. The floor is yours.
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, and I'm happy to go wherever the conversation goes, but I'll give a little bit background of what we've been doing, I guess, pre-COVID, and then how that has evolved since COVID and what we're hoping to do for this coming back to school, and thinking about it with a bunch of districts and teachers around the country and frankly the world. So as you introduced, Khan Academy, it started off as this project to tutoring cousins. I started writing software for them so they could learn at their own time and pace, fill in gaps. And a friend suggested that I start making videos to complement those. And that just kind of took on a life of its own. We set it up as a not-for-profit about 12 years ago. And over the last 10 years, we have about, pre-COVID, about 20 million students coming every month, about 100 million registered users. About half of our usage has been in classrooms. And that's because we have always viewed the ideal case of personalized learning and online learning to not in some way somehow substitute a classroom, but to empower the classroom. I've always said if I had to pick between an amazing teacher and amazing technology, I would pick the amazing teacher every time. But the ideal is not having to pick and having the amazing technology empower the amazing teacher. We all know that teachers have a classroom, there's 30 kids, they're at all different levels of preparedness, they have all different gaps in their knowledge. It's very hard for a teacher by themselves without supports to differentiate instruction and personalize for each of those students. Free tools like Khan Academy allow teachers to do that and then get data on where their kids are in real time and then say, oh, okay, these kids are progressing just fine, but these kids are having trouble with that standard. Let me do a more focused intervention with them. And then you could imagine rolling up that data to the school or the district level. So we had been doing partnerships like that for many years. And then about 2 or 3 years ago, we started having a whole series of efficacy studies that if students are able to even put in 45 minutes a week, they're growing 10, 20, 30% faster than expected. And so we went to a bunch of districts who said, look, we have a lot of grassroots adoption of Khan Academy, but we want to make sure we can reach all students. That's our goal as a not-for-profit, to make sure that we have impact, especially with the kids who need it the most. And what the districts told us, and this might resonate with a lot of y'all, is, well, that's great. This model of 45 minutes a week seems doable. You're not asking us to reboot our entire curriculum. It's a strategic supplement. But in order to use this whole scale, we have to have support, training, integration with our rostering systems, ideally integration with some of the standardized tests we're taking. And we realized, okay, for us to really deliver on our mission as to help provide a free world-class education for anyone, anywhere, we should do what these districts are asking us to do. So over the last several years, we've been forging partnerships. We forged a partnership with the NWEA, which administers the MAP growth assessment, which we've always viewed as the gold standard in formative assessment. That's what we use to measure a lot of Khan Academy's efficacy. And we asked them, hey, what if the MAP growth assessment informed personalized practice on Khan Academy? And we had a archetype for that already. We're partnered with the College Board around the SAT, and the PSAT now acts as a diagnostic and placement for practice on Khan Academy. So the NWEA folks were, they're like, yeah, this is what we're hearing from a lot of educators. They want the assessment to be actionable. So we went down that path, and generally speaking, not just around the NWEA MAP growth assessment, but generally speaking, we decided, hey, we could create district partnerships with districts who want that rostering, that support, that training, who want to be able to roll up and get the data at a district level. And that's what we were doing pre-COVID. We had our pilot year, so to speak. Obviously, there's millions of classroom or students using us in classrooms in a grassroots way. Clark County, which is Las Vegas, was our largest pilot, and we've been seeing some very interesting results. Stay tuned to the next few weeks. We're going to be publishing some of that. And then COVID hit, and we saw our traffic 3x of what it typically is. We started realizing, it's one of those situations where you look left, you look right, and you're like, I think this is us, because we realized the world needed things that are free, needed things that are accessible, things that are easy to use, things that have subject matter starting as early as pre-K. We have Khan Academy Kids, which now we just launched Teacher Tools, which starts in the Head Start standards and then goes through the kindergarten and first grade standards. And then obviously a lot of people know about us. We have math all the way through calculus and statistics, but we also have the sciences, English language arts, etc. And so we said we have to put out more supports for districts, teachers, parents. So we put out daily schedules. So how can you use Khan Academy as part of a holistic experience for different students of different age groups? We've been putting out learning plans so that kids and parents and teachers can see goals, not just through the end of the school year, but over the whole summer. And we know as we go to this back to school, that problem that I talked about, that kids have they've a lot of variance in preparedness, that's going to be that much bigger this coming back to school. And so what we're really ramping up for is, one, we're working with districts is like, what are best practices as kids come back to school? What are best practices if we have to do other models, if we have to go back to virtual because the virus picks up? And we're trying to put in more tools so that it's going to be easy for districts to diagnose where their kids are. If they're operating behind grade level, really fast ways for them to remediate to grade level. And then obviously for the kids at grade level, either way, to learn at their own time and pace.
Thank you so much, Sal. I really appreciate that. And you definitely highlighted a couple things in Idaho that is going to be really important. And one is, as a former teacher myself, saying if you had to choose, it definitely would be the teacher, but you don't want folks to have to do that. And also what is pretty impressive is you mentioning the fact that we need to support the work that's already being done. And so, Idaho is a local control state, and that's our mission too here at the State Department of Education. That's why we have you here today. We just want to make sure that we have the opportunity to have discussions today about what resources are available to kids, and really like what you had to say. And I'll go in and introduce a couple other the panelists, and then we'll come back to a couple other questions. So thank you, Sal. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Want to really quickly introduce a new panelist that has joined us, and that's Gina Thompson, and she is the superintendent of Yuma Union High School District in Arizona as well. She works to provide a world-class education where every student is college, career, and community prepared upon graduation. So she has worked for her district since 1989, starting at Scola High School as an English teacher and serving Yuma High School and principal at Calfee High School. So just want to welcome Gina, and we'll get to her. Thanks for being here, and we're going to go back to Dr. Bethanyquisenberry. She is the K-5 curriculum director, remember, in the school district of Lee County in Florida. So same question to you, Dr. Bethanyquisenberry. What partnerships, as you heard me mention earlier in this webinar, what's your organization or the partnerships that you have? What are you doing to support distance learning? Because I've said over and over again that we can't do this alone, and nor should we have to. So could you tell us a little bit more about what your district is doing?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. As you said, my name is Bethanyquisenberry, and I'm the Director for Curriculum and Instruction in Lee County School District. For those who aren't familiar with Florida, our primary city is Fort Myers, so we are in Southwest Florida. Our district has 110 schools. We have around 96,000 students total and a little over 5,000 teachers. So moving to distance learning was an experience, to say the least, for that large of a district. So I want to just talk a little bit about how we started. So our students went on spring break beginning March 12th, and then the very next day, our governor announced that we would be closed for 2 weeks. As we all know, we are closed for the rest of the school year, but at that time, we were told only 2 weeks. And so our department began working on the continuity plan that you see. And we made sure that when we worked through it, that we provided a plan that was going to work us through the end of the year, as well as anytime students are out of school for more than a week. So this plan will be our continuity plan for the future. In our area, we get a lot of hurricanes, so there are times that we are out of school for more than a week. So we really made sure that when we built this plan that we were able to utilize it for in the future. Our first step was ensuring that all of our students had a computer or a Chromebook and access to the internet. So in our county, all of our students in grades 6 to 12 already were one-to-one with Chromebooks. Our elementary students, however, were not. And so we had to isolate how many of them had siblings in 6 to 12 and began a distribution plan for all of the other students. And we're able to distribute 15,000 Chromebooks in only 3 days. So that was awesome. Part of our distribution process was also access to the internet, and our families were able to register at the school for free internet through Comcast. And then we also distributed hotspots from our district. Our district purchased an additional 10,000 hotspots to assign to any of our teachers or any of our students that needed it. So in our continuity plan, we included a week of professional development and preparation time for our teachers. So March 16th through March 12th, our teachers set up their Google Classrooms. They scheduled office hours, and then they completed professional development on all of the applications that they needed. During that week, our teachers, administrators, social workers, and guidance counselors also contacted every one of our students to make sure that they had a Chromebook or a home computer, and that they had internet, and that they would be ready to go the following week. So we created an attendance process through this continuity plan. Our teachers take attendance once a week based on assignments that they complete in Google Classrooms, through Zoom meetings, or any student contact, or also through iReady. The first week of distance learning, which was March 30th, our district had 89% overall attendance for pre-K to 12. And then the past 2 weeks, we've had 99% overall. So we feel that that's a huge accomplishment. So our students and our staff already had a launch pad that housed all of our district-supported applications and utilized a single sign-on. So that really helped to ease some confusion with our applications. Everything is in one place and doesn't require separate login credentials. And so our students just logged into launchpad.leeschools, and then all of the applications are there on a desktop view. So Google Classrooms were already utilized in most of our classrooms as a platform. And so we moved that over for our main platform for distance learning. And then we also minimized the resources that our teachers were able to use to help with confusion for families and students to having to learn so many different programs. And then we also wanted to keep it consistent among all of our classrooms and our schools. So the main student learning platform that we utilize is Curriculum and Associates iReady. So prior to distance learning, we had implemented iReady ELA and math in 21 of our elementary schools and 3 of our middle schools as part of a pilot, and we had really great results. So March 16th, which was only days after our closure announcement, we received communication from iReady that all parts of the program were going to be open for free to all schools during this time. So we were really excited about that. And it really gave us the capability to be able to streamline our student learning paths for ELA and math in K-8 for all of our students and all of our schools. So iReady immediately began scheduling professional development for not only our curriculum department, but also all of our elementary and middle schools for that PD week. The webinars were part of the teacher's playlist for the first week that you'll see reference to in the continuity plan. iReady also offered makeup sessions the following week as well, and then they have provided ongoing professional development for the past 5 weeks for all of our teachers that wanted additional support. Our teachers were able to assign standards-based lessons for ELA and math based on our district scope and sequence. They were also able to differentiate the level of the lessons for the individualized needs of all of their students. Teachers monitor the student data in the iReady program, and then they reach out to the students that need support based on the data by providing interventions on that specific standard through a Zoom or a Google Hangout. Our ESE teachers and resource teachers also monitor the students that they support, and they work with the classroom teachers to provide that intervention for those students as well. Weekly reports are sent to our school administrators from the iReady team, and it shows the percent of our students at their specific school that are meeting their minutes goals, and then the percent of students that are passing their lessons. And these reports are very easily broken down by grade level and by teacher and student so that principals can monitor that as well. I also monitor the reports at the district level, and then I reach out to the principals if I see schools that have some areas of opportunity, and then the administrators are able to reach out to the individual teachers that might have some areas of opportunity based on their data as well. So since we've implemented the iReady program for distance learning, I have had an additional 26 elementary schools contact me and wanting to join the pilot for next school year, and all of our middle schools will be joining the pilot for next school year as well. So we sent out a family survey to all of our families 2 weeks ago on distance learning, and we were really excited to see that all of the responses were at an 85% or higher positive. And then we also sent out a survey to all of our instructional staff last week, and all of that feedback was 90% or higher positive, and there were specific questions on the continuity plan as well as the iReady program. So we were really excited about that as well. For our next steps, we've planned on moving all of our academic summer programs to the distance learning platform. All of our elementary and middle school students are going to have the opportunity to continue utilizing iReady through the end of July. So we're hiring teachers to monitor the student reports and contact students to provide interventions based on their data, similar to what we are doing during the school year at this time. And then students will take a diagnostic virtually at the end of May, and that's going to help to create their individualized learning path for them to work through the summer. We know that there obviously will be holes that have been created with being on distance learning, and so we want to make sure that that student's individualized learning path is meeting their needs. We've had amazing success with using the iReady program and great buy-in from our teachers and our families. And so we really look forward to continuing that partnership next school year and planning on what our fall semester will look like. So thank you very much for having me. And if anybody has any questions on our continuity plan or on how we utilize iReady, you can contact me anytime or ask questions at the end of the webinar.
Thank you so much, Bethany. And I want to remind everybody that you can start posting your questions now, actually, in the app. And these handouts are available to download online right now as we work through them. And they will also be available at the end as well for you to access. So Bethany did mention that they're using iReady, and so we do have with her curriculum and associate Debbie Smith that I introduced earlier. Debbie, did you have anything to add? Bethany, that was a lot of great information. I really appreciate that. Debbie, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, just very quickly. Lee County has such a great plan, so I'm glad that they were able to share it today. One of the things that's been really important to us is looking at how are students engaged online during this time period, particularly based around equity and looking at income levels. And so, as Dr. Quisenberry shared, they've seen really good success with students logging on. We've looked at some data that shows when students first started logging on the first week after most schools were closed, we saw a significant drop. However, we saw kids from higher income levels that were still pretty well engaged. By week 2, the higher income levels had really reached, right, the level that we were used to seeing them engage. And by week 3, what really, I think, surprised us all pleasantly was that we began to see students in the lowest income levels not only catching up to those in the higher income brackets, but surpassing them. And that's continued to be the tradition, right, that we're seeing right now. And I think it speaks volumes to if we can get materials and devices broadband, right? If we can have those things accessible to kids, that we absolutely are seeing across all income levels, we're seeing them engage and hopefully, right, continuing to learn. So we appreciate the opportunity to be here today and look forward to answering any questions you might have.
Thank you, Debbie. I really appreciate that insight. I know both of you, Debbie and Bethany, answered a question that I was going to ask later around, how do you help students and how do you know that they're staying involved and they're being motivated? So it's great to hear that you're monitoring that as their platform, and so really appreciate that. I'm going to move over for the sake of time to Dr. Stephen Polling. He is the Assistant Superintendent in Dysart Unified Public Schools. And Dr. Polling, if you could just give us a quick insight into what partnerships have helped you through this trying time with the COVID, and talk a little bit about how you are making sure the kids are staying engaged and delivering services to your students.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. It's my pleasure, and great comments from our other presenters as well. Thank you. So yeah, I'll talk a little bit about our partner with Florida Virtual. Back, I would say about 4 years ago, we were assessing our online platform and really creating a new vision for how we could engage students and talk a lot about student agency and what are students really wanting and how can they advocate for themselves. And we ended up creating a partner with Florida Virtual, and our numbers of students taking at least one online course have skyrocketed. 4 years ago when we started with them, we had a few hundred students engaged in an online course, and currently we have over 5,000. So the majority of our high school students are taking at least one course. And of course, working with Florida Virtual, we have flexible options for students that they can, take a period in their day and they come to our collaborative commons to work on those and receive support from an online teacher that is housed there, or they can work independently. And we also have some students that are full-time online students. Fast forward to what we're dealing with COVID. Having a strong partner like Florida Virtual really enabled us to transition quickly to continue to support students on the online platform. We did go through, similar things in terms of Chromebook checkouts if students do not already have one, as well as there's some hotspots and some families engaging with companies like Cox. We'll add that's something that can be better on in the future, as I believe there's still more need and we need to improve in that area of internet access. I think that districts, one more comment I'll add is just as districts are looking to starting partnerships, one of the things that we did that really helped is we assessed our organizational support for the partnership and for online learning for students. So we looked across our district, and whether it's from IT side of it, our student information system, and our state reporting, so we could really understand online students and how we can report that to the state for funding. And then we looked at what ways can we support students and not only show them all the options online, but how we can support them being more successful. It is different than just being in the classroom with the textbook and the teacher. Then also what kind of teacher development and teacher support can we give, and finally administrative support. How do we support administrators in implementing our online platform, but also in continuing to help it grow. And so, we are excited about our continued partnership with Florida Virtual. We are going to expand this summer into a summer school so we can help students who are behind get caught up. And we're going to push that all the way down to kindergarten level. And so right now we're working on plans to have K-12 summer school and online. And we're excited about our partnership with Florida Virtual. So with that, I'll move to our partner, Courtney Calfee from Florida Virtual, if she would like to add anything.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Dr. Polling, thank you for that. I really appreciate that. And And again, we're going to turn it over to Courtney here in a minute to add to his partnership, like he said, with Courtney is the Senior Director of Partner Services Global at Florida Virtual Schools. And so again, we're highlighting how important these partnerships are in making sure that kids' needs are accessed. And I appreciate Dr. Polling, you referring to assessing your organizational support, because I think that that's something that here in Idaho we have really been discussing. Some similarities that we have is, you know, a lot of our high school students are already equipped with devices and also with wireless, but one of the things that we do need to work on are the younger students, and so this is very helpful, and the partnerships that you all have expressed up to this point can help us through that. So Courtney, would you have anything to add to Dr. Polling's presentation?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I agree with everything that the panelists have said, and certainly we work with our partners all over, not just with the curriculum needs, but also we found a huge need for supports, not just for the teachers, as you all have mentioned, but for parents too. You know, this is a much different world. So we have put together a bunch of resources online at our flvs.net/community for anybody, workshops, any teachers or all over the country to have access to it, to really help support those parents and teachers as well as the program. So thanks for having us here.
Thank you, Courtney. I really appreciate that. We're going to, because one of the things we're noticing here in Idaho are you know, parents are under a lot of stress during this time too, and that support out to them through your partnerships that I'm hearing is very critical. We get a lot of questions around how can we involve parents, and so that was very helpful. So we're going to move on to Gina. Again, remember, she's the superintendent of Yuma Union High School District in Arizona. And Gina, if you could share with us your partnerships and how that's helped your students to stay engaged and help them, you know, what we're saying here in Idaho is help, you know, that life goes on for kids right now.
Yes, I'm not sure if you want camera on or video, but I don't have anything to present. So thank you so much for having me and letting me go in this position, because I've taken lots of notes from our partners on the phone. So thank you for that. Yuma Union High School District is a 9 through 12 district, and our placement geographically in Yuma County has us in a pretty unique position. We're considered rural when it's convenient, but because of our size, sometimes they call us urban rural. But we are a Title I district. Our community is probably close to 68, 72%, depending on which high school. We're full Title I. So depending on which school it is as far as the level, but we have all free and reduced lunch at all of our schools. And our proximity to different borders also puts us in a unique position, especially when we flip that switch, so to speak, to go digital. And that is, at any one time, one of our schools is literally 1.5 miles from the Mexico border. Another one is about 20 minutes into California and a reservation. And so we're just kind of all a very large county and quite rural. So I would say, even though our district, we went one-to-one devices about 8 years ago, 10 years ago now. And you know, I guess chicken or the egg, which one comes first? But we just we bought devices because we had the funding for that through our Title I dollars, and didn't do the PD part. We didn't have all of that in place. So we've gone the iteration from netbooks all the way now, and we're a full Chromebook district. We do live in the Google environment. And I would say for us, you know, it's so impressive looking at the other plans. We're more of a, because I think, in my opinion, and I've been the superintendent for 3 years, but I've been here for 30, we got the stuff without the adult learning that needed to come with it. And it's just critical. We now have such an amazing team as far as teachers for the adults. And I think that that has exponentially helped us through this particular time with COVID-19. While the digital divide, as far as with students and the learnings and the ability to have access has been highlighted, so inequity has been highlighted at a huge cost. It also has been highlighted that our movement to not opting in and opting out of different platforms was the right move. So we use Canvas completely as our LMS, and we have a much more robust tracking of data. So from the time of COVID-19, the first week of posting assignments and not having any opt-out, and obviously you can't do it traditionally in your classroom, we had 100% of our teachers have their lessons posted. I'm not going to say they were all attractive and wonderful, but to have 100% of adults do anything in any environment, in my mind, is a win, because I do find that it is rarely the kids that are the problem. So that being said, it really, the financial investment paid off, but just highlighting how important the adult learning is and having the ability to track the data. Our partnership with ASU Prep Digital has been ongoing, and I think that again it just continues to drive home that when you're in a rural community, that's how you get things done for your students, is by partnership. And ASU Prep Digital has been our partner through curriculum, but now they're also our partner in building even further into our adult learning of how to not only exist, but to be phenomenal in a digital world, so that students are driven to want to go to your classroom if it's on that type of a platform. And so, I know there are questions, and I don't want to take a ton of time for this, but I'm always available for questions. It's been an interesting learning experience, and I think it has really driven home how important partnerships are. Just because you can't do something with a partnership in the moment, you never know 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the road when those relationships will develop into powerful partnerships.
Thank you so much, Gina. I really appreciate that. And you mentioned your partnership with ASU, and we do have Julie Young with us. So Julie is with, as I mentioned earlier, she's the Vice President of Education Outreach and Student Services, the Director of ASU Digital Prep and ASU Prep Digital High School. So Julie, would you add anything to what Gina was talking about earlier? That was very informative.
Sure, I'm laughing at you trying to say all those ASU Prep things. It gets confusing. ASU Prep Academy is a network of charter schools that was authorized by ASU 10 years ago. And one of the schools within the academy is our digital school, which started out as a high school and is now a K-12 school. And so we operate in that manner, but the bulk of what we do and our mission and our vision for Arizona is supporting the work out in the field, such as what Gina has been describing. And first and foremost, Gina is a rock star superintendent. She and her team have been incredibly innovative, and they have been risk takers, early adopters. And so it has been such a pleasure to work with them to support the work and watch it grow. So, I mean, we're currently providing math and forensic science for all of their freshmen, which has been a wonderful opportunity. And Gina has worked tirelessly to put in plan and a phase-in adoption, and has gained buy-in from her teachers through her leadership. So we are very focused on not only delivering curriculum, lots of folks can do that, but what we're highly focused on is the training and the efficacy of the program. So we are working with Gina to build training for the summer that we will deliver together to others in our state, as everyone right now is asking for training on remote learning, remote meeting, remote teaching, and some of what's been mentioned here before, just in terms of, we always think about the students. We always think about the teachers needing training. The leaders tend to kind of come after that, and what we sometimes forget are the parents and the students. And parents need training, and so do students need training in terms of how to learn in this different environment. So it has been our pleasure to work with Gina. We look forward to a long, wonderful partnership. And I have to just take a moment to say this is ironically heartwarming. Bethany, I worked with you in Fort Myers years and years ago. That's where I started my career. And then worked with Courtney when I was CEO at Florida Virtual School. And here we are all together in this very small community in this industry. So it's just a fun moment for me.
Thank you so much, Julie. I really appreciate that. The one thing I just want to highlight, I think, that I've heard as a theme throughout this whole discussion is how our partnerships can help us address some of the concerns that even parents have. And, how do we motivate our students? And these partnerships have helped us address things that sometimes we think as educators we have to do it alone, right? This next question I'm going to ask you really goes into the heart of that. So I'm going to give this one to Dr. Bethanyquisenberry. And it's something I was going to ask anyway, but it's something that my folks from Idaho who are listening actually posed this question as well. So Bethany, how did you get your teachers to buy in to your wonderful plan that you posted and shared with us on your learning platform and the training and the organization that you have there? Really love how you pointed out that you narrowed down some of your options for the online learning tools because that's confusing to parents. That's one of the things I heard in Idaho was some of the parents have several kids in school and one student is using this form and other students using that one. They can't keep up. But how do you get teachers to buy into this online learning environment?
So we started with a lot of communication. So when I tell you communication overload, you'll see all of the links in here. We literally produced a video of our superintendent, our chief of academics, and our curriculum directors for everything and walked them through it because most of the pushback that we did begin to get, because remember, when we started this process, our teachers and our students were on spring break. So during that week that we were working on this, we were getting a lot of questions and getting a lot of kind of negative feedback because they didn't know. We hadn't communicated out yet. They didn't know what the plan was going to be, and so they started getting anxious. And so as we started creating these videos and sending out on the very bottom, if you scroll all the way down, it has distance learning ICANN checklist, and then distance learning for students and family, distance learning for teachers, distance learning for administrators. And so by being very clear in our expectations and very clear in our communication, that's what got that buy-in, because they wanted to know what the expectations were, and they wanted them to be very clear. It also, the buy-in helps that we gave them a week to prepare. So instead of us opening up on Monday, our students missed 5 days of instruction. We gave them, ways through our district website to be able to log into different learning platforms that they could use on their own. But our students lost the 5 days of instruction that our state has now forgiven all of our counties for. But it was really important for our teachers to be able to complete all of this PD and really understand why we were limiting the resources. Why did we choose iReady? Why did we choose Google Classrooms? And so through that ongoing communication and professional development is what really steered through that buy-in. And the same with parents and families. So I have never done so many interviews in my life. So we were on the news doing interviews. It seemed like every hour. We were doing podcasts. We were on radio stations. And then we recorded the videos for the step-by-steps for the parents and the students as well, because what Julie said earlier is exactly right. The parents are not used to using these online programs at home. And so they really needed professional development of their own. We had hotlines for them to call into us and help help.parents.lee schools that they could email when they had a problem, that we called them immediately to walk them through. And so just clear lines of communication is what really helped our continuity plan to take off. And after 2 weeks, obviously distance learning is not ideal, but the hiccups have gone away, and everyone's just kind of cruising and trying to make it to the end of the school year now.
Thank you, Bethany. The next question, and we're getting down to the last few minutes, so there's a lot of questions I have and a lot of questions the audience has, but connectivity is a real issue in Idaho because we're very, very rural. And so I want to give this question to Gina, since you mentioned being rural and you know, how close you are to the Mexico border. And what advice would you give to superintendents or us in Idaho around addressing some of the connectivity and availability of devices so that we can facilitate some of these expectations around distance learning? You know, they're saying we may see another round of this in the fall, that this could become the new norm for education for a little while. So what advice do you have for us when it comes to addressing the connectivity and the device issue?
You know, that's such a great question. And unfortunately, obviously, all these brilliant people leading districts, there is no easy or fast answer, especially considering Idaho. I'm a proud Eastern Washington University grad, by the way. So there's just no easy answer for rural districts and rural communities because there's so much involved. I think one of the things that I've had to call our legislators about is it's not as easy as putting a cell phone tower and a few hotspots and like, great, we have all these people wanting to give us hotspots, but it's the infrastructure, it's under the ground, it's building that bandwidth. The reason that Yuma Union has been poised in a pretty great place simply because we had grown our own chief information officer who is, you know, is our IT director, and it has been literally, you know, a 15-year growth of but we had to do it ourselves, and that was learning how to increase bandwidth, learning what we needed to put underground and what wasn't going to be able to be done. At the same time, and again, out of bad comes really great new relationships. We had a team of people led by actually one of our really awesome farmers here in Yuma County, who has made it his business the past 3 years to challenge legislators and the cell phone companies who make good money off of our communities, all of us in the US. And he has made it a mission to go through and learn everything there was to learn about this particular problem, because our farming community, our ag community has now, they're also digital, right? All of their equipment, if they're a progressive farmer, and you know, Yuma's an ag business, an ag community. So the connectivity and that infrastructure has become even more important. So now over the last 2 months, you know, linking Yuma Union IT department with the city and county folks that were going on with their work over the past 3 years has just like all these light bulbs have gone on, that it will be faster and stronger to work together. Right now, quite honestly, our team is looking at developing our own cell phone tower and our own business so that we're not beholden to any vendor who can decide when and where they want to support education. Honestly, at the highest level of leadership, superintendents, principals, just all of us, we just have to pressure legislators in a positive way, educating them on why hotspots and cell phone towers aren't going to solve the long haul, and you know, and then for the rest of it, you kind of do have to put those band-aids on for a while, depending on what your situation is. and work with other organizations to help support the work. Not an easy, nice, tidy answer, but that's where I would start, is educating your legislators that you probably lobby all the time for education.
Thank you, Gina. I really appreciate you being very straightforward and saying there's not an easy answer to that. There's not a statewide solution. There's not a local solution. I heard a combination of both of those. And so I appreciate that. We're getting a question and we're kind of nearing down to the end of our time already. I kind of feel like maybe we should have went a couple of hours. This is interesting. Appreciate the panelists, because these are some of the issues that we're facing in Idaho. But I wanted to ask a little bit about the CARES Act, and I will ask Dr. Polling this one. What advice would you give a state or education leaders on maximizing the impact of education money from the CARES Act that they'll be receiving?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. That is a great question. I think maximizing it, number one, the district leaders really have to look at how can we best help students with those funds. And again, assessing what your own district needs are and what do you have in place, kind of go back to that, assessing your organization. What do we have in place? What's going well right now? And how can we best utilize that money? So number one, support students and their parents. And number two, how best to support staff so that you can really fill some gaps. And every district has different gaps, different needs. But I would say, starting with those things.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. There are a couple questions I want to address quickly as we wrap up here. One of them is, I heard a rumor that Idaho is considering adopting a statewide LMS. Can anybody comment on this? I can. That is a conversation that we're having. And I want everyone out there listening to know that would be an opt-in model. And so we heard Bethany talk about that earlier. We heard a couple other folks talk about that earlier. And we would look at, should we go down that path? We would look at sometime maybe in the fall, hopefully before that. But we're just in the early stages of having that conversation. So we'll take one more question. And I think this is a really important one, and it's around grading. And so I think I'll give this one back to Bethany. And Bethany, the audience wants to know, did you change grading for students for the traditional report card as you went into this model at all, or moved to a standards-based report card?
We did not. So that was attendance and grading was our, as you can imagine, as it is across the nation, was our biggest questions. How are we taking attendance? And how are we grading? So in our district, grading is a school-based decision. We have a report card that is not standards-based. It's the traditional ABC all the way down to kindergarten that we are working to change but have not been successful. So we left grading as a school-based decision. And so they just had to stay within the parameters of the different programs. They had to be standards-based and it had to be on grade, the grades had to be on grade level. But our motto has been this entire time, grade with grace. So we talked on our videos, we talked through communication with teachers, and we meet with our principals. We Zoom with them twice a week for about 2 hours. So we meet with them a lot to go through what does grading with grace look like in a distance learning platform. We only added onto our report cards that fourth quarter grades are a reflection of distance learning. I mean, the whole nation, that's a reflection of. So no matter where the child transferred to, that would probably be a given. But we did leave our grades up to the schools, and we still left it as standards-based. Most of them are, I can speak, so I have 4 children. I have a unique personal and professional outlook on distance learning because I have a child in elementary, one in middle, one in high school, and one in college. So I'm getting all perspectives of distance learning. And for my personal children in Lee County, many of them, like for my kindergartner, they do their assessments through Zoom. So when they're grading on sight words or on their letter names or on comprehension, they're doing it through the Zoom platform. My middle schooler is doing it through the iReady or through their Google Classroom. So it looks a little different by each of the levels depending on the student.
Thank you for that. I have a question for Sal from Khan Academy. Sal, when school facilities open back up, what do you think is going to change as a result of the COVID-19 and all of this distance learning? Do you have any advice for us? Do you have any perspectives on a blended model moving forward, or do you have ideas for schools? Maybe, I know Idaho is thinking about 4 days a week doing regular traditional brick and mortar, and then maybe Fridays having an e-learning. But do you have any thoughts to add about how this might change education moving forward?
Yeah, there are already good arguments for using blended learning or personalization before COVID. Many folks are aware, you were able to put even an hour or 45 minutes a week, kids can fill in their gaps, et cetera. So there's always that use case. But now in this COVID world, with all of this uncertainty where schools might have to go experiment with different models, like shift-based models, some of the models you just described. If the virus comes back, we might have to shut down again. I think that adds another, I guess you could say, value proposition to being able to use some of these online tools as a strategic supplement during the school year. You get that benefit from a pedagogical point of view, but then if the schools have to be closed or if you have to move to some of these more flexible shift-based models, then you can lean heavier on these online tools. And that core value proposition that the online tools are often used for, which is kids have very diverse needs, very big gaps in their knowledge. That issue, which always exists, is going to be that much bigger this coming back to school. So I think another opportunity, and we've talked to some superintendents that are, what's interesting about this crisis is people are very open to things that, might have seemed non-standard even a few months ago. And so I think there's an opportunity for all of us this coming back to, well, I think there's a couple. I think there's an opportunity to keep learning during the summer, which frankly we should always be doing. And then as we go into back to school, I do think, especially in math, and to some degree reading, but I think especially in math, it's crucial that kids have maybe a little bit more time to learn at their own pace, fill in their gaps, and get to grade level. And so I think we were talking to some districts that are doing some creative things about maybe having double blocks, maybe having a dedicated focus time on this so they can use Khan Academy to get their kids up to speed quite quickly before they get into the quote normal school year.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Well, folks, we have come to the conclusion of this great conversation. And so to our panelists, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to visit with us. It's really been informative and enlightening, and your input has been so valuable as we continue to deliver an education to our students during this pandemic and work towards better personalization of education. So, to ensure our students are receiving a greater mastery of the subjects that we're teaching. And to the superintendents on this call, again, thank you for participating and for your continued work to support our students and our communities. I also want to let those folks know who are listening, we are working on our next webinar already, and it's set to highlight some Idaho superintendents and what they're doing. So stay tuned and be looking forward to that. But again, just a heartfelt gratitude to the panelists with us today. We will have these documents and question and answers available for you on the coronavirus.idaho.gov webpage. Again, thank you for participating today.